Caicedo signs until 2033, and what it means for the club going into a massive game against Manchester United. There are moments in football that just feel right. Moments where you watch something happen and you think, yes, this is exactly how it should be. Moises Caicedo signing a new contract at Chelsea until 2033 is one of those moments. And when you combine that with the fact that Chelsea are heading into one of the biggest games of their season against Manchester United this Saturday, the timing could not be more perfect or more complicated. So let us sit down and talk about all of it properly, because there is a lot to unpack here, and the Chelsea community deserves a full breakdown of what is happening, what it means, and what we should be expecting going forward. Part 1. Moises Caicedo is here to stay, and that is everything. Let us start with the good news, the news that made every Chelsea fan smile this week. Moises Caicedo has signed a new long-term contract with Chelsea Football Club that will keep him at Stamford Bridge until 2033. Read that again, until 2033. This young man, who only joined the club in August 2023 from Brighton and Hove Albion, has now committed a huge chunk of his career to this football club, and the way he spoke about it, pure joy. Pure love for the club, he said, and these are his own words. You cannot imagine how happy I am right now. That is not a player going through the motions of a press conference. That is a man who genuinely means every single word. But let us go back to where this all started. How Caicedo became one of Chelsea's most important players. When Caicedo arrived at Chelsea, there were high expectations. The transfer fee was big, the profile was big, and in the beginning, like many players who arrive under pressure, there were moments where things did not always click straight away. But over time, something remarkable happened. Caicedo grew, not just as a footballer, but as a leader, as a personality, as someone that younger players could look up to. Think about what he has done in less than 3 years at this club. He has made 140 appearances. That is not just a number. That is commitment. That is showing up week after week, game after game, staying fit, staying focused, and doing the job. For a midfielder in the modern game, playing that many times for one club in such a short space of time tells you a lot about a player's character and durability. Head coach Liam Rosenior did not hold back when he spoke about Caicedo earlier this month. He called him one of the best defensive midfield players, if not the best defensive midfield player in world football. Let that sink in for a moment. Not one of the best in England, not one of the best in Europe, in world football. That is how much Rosenior rates this man. And honestly, can you argue with that? Can you watch Caicedo play and say he does not deserve that description? What makes Caicedo so special? There is a reason people keep talking about him. It is because of what he does in a football match that most people do not fully appreciate until you watch closely. He does not just defend. He does not just pass. He reads the game in a way that very few players in the world can. He is always in the right place. He always knows when to press and when to hold his position. He wins the ball back and then uses it with intelligence rather than just giving it away under pressure. But here is the thing about Caicedo that perhaps gets overlooked. He has finesse, he has touch, he has quality. This is not just a player who runs around and tackles people. This is a midfielder who can control the tempo of a game, who can pick a pass, who can drive forward and create danger. Remember his goal of the season in 2024, a strike from the halfway line against Bournemouth? That goal alone tells you everything you need to know about a footballer who has much more in his game than people sometimes give him credit for. A leader, before his time. Here is a question for you. When was the last time you saw a player so young become such a natural leader at a club the size of Chelsea? Caicedo is 24 years old. He is not a veteran. He is not someone who has been around for a decade and earned the captaincy through years of service. And yet he has captained Chelsea multiple times. He first wore the armband in a UEFA Conference League qualifier against Servette at the start of the 2024-25 season. And most recently, he captained the side last weekend against Manchester City. When he talks about what the armband means to him, you can hear the weight of it. He said, thinking about it, I enjoyed that moment because it is not easy to earn the armband. Being here was a dream for me. I always prayed for these moments. That kind of honesty is rare in modern football. This is a player who has not forgotten where he came from, who remembers what it felt like to dream about playing for a club like Chelsea, and now he is not just playing for them, he is leading them. And his family back in Ecuador, he mentioned them too. For them, every time he steps onto that pitch wearing that armband, it is something special. Football does that. It connects people across countries, across cultures, across everything. The trophy's already in the cabinet. Now let us also appreciate what Caicedo has already won at Chelsea, because some players spend their entire careers at big clubs without winning anything. Caicedo arrived and got to work straight away. He won the UEFA Conference League with Chelsea, and he did not just turn up and collect a medal. He scored in the final against Real Betis, a goal in a cup final. That is the kind of moment that defines careers. That is something he will tell people about for the rest of his life. Then came the FIFA Club World Cup. Another trophy. Another piece of silverware in the cabinet. 2 major trophies in such a short period of time. But Caicedo is clear that he wants more. He wants to bring more trophies to this club. He mentioned the FA Cup specifically, saying he promises to give everything to win it this season, and he wants next season to be even better. So now the big question is, can Chelsea build around this man and actually challenge for the biggest prizes in the game? The squad situation and the problems Rosenior needs to fix. Signing Caicedo to a long-term deal is wonderful. It is a statement of intent. But the reality is that Chelsea are in a difficult moment right now, and no contract extension changes that overnight. Let us be honest about where the club stands at this point in the season. 5 defeats from 6 games is a crisis, plain and simple. There is no soft way to say this. 5 defeats from 6 matches is a bad run of form. It is the kind of run that puts pressure on everyone at a football club, the manager, the players, the board. Last weekend, Chelsea were beaten 3-0 by Manchester City. That is not just a defeat, that is a heavy defeat, the kind that leaves marks on confidence, the kind that gets talked about for weeks, and the result means Chelsea are currently sitting in 6th place in the Premier League table, 4 points behind Liverpool, who are in 5th. 4 points might not sound like a lot, but when you only have a certain number of games left, and you are playing teams who are also fighting for the same spots, every point matters enormously. The top 5 in the Premier League this season means Champions League qualification. That is what Chelsea are fighting for, and right now, the situation is uncomfortable. So what has gone wrong? The issues in the midfield against Manchester City last weekend, the midfield struggled. Even Caicedo, who is usually so reliable, had what the analysis described as an erratic display. There was a notable error where he gave the ball away, and it led directly to Jeremy Doku scoring City's 3rd goal. Now here is something worth thinking about. Caicedo having a bad game does not make him a bad player. Everyone has bad games. Even the best players in the world have matches where things do not go their way. But it does show that when the team around him is not functioning properly, even the best individuals can suffer. Andre Santos partnered Caicedo in the midfield against City, and the two of them together were not able to control the game the way Chelsea needed them to. The second half in particular was described as desperate from Chelsea's perspective. This is why the return of Enzo Fernandez this weekend is so significant. What changes against Manchester United? Here is the most important update coming into Saturday's game. Enzo Fernandez is back. Fernandez has been serving a 2-game internal suspension from the club, not a ban from the Football Association or from UEFA, an internal ban handed down by Chelsea themselves. The reason? Comments he made that were connected to transfer links with Real Madrid. That situation was not ideal for anyone. When a player at a club starts getting publicly linked with moves away and then makes comments about it, it creates noise and distraction. Chelsea dealt with it by suspending him for 2 games. Those 2 games are now done, and Fernandez is back in contention. Why does this matter so much? Because Fernandez is exactly the kind of player Chelsea have been missing during this terrible run of form. He provides creativity. He provides that ability to unlock defenses with a pass that others simply cannot make. He is the kind of talisman that this Chelsea side needs right now. Liam Roseneur confirmed Fernandez is back in contention, but was careful not to guarantee he starts. Whether he immediately returns to the XI remains to be seen, as Roseneur put it, but the expectation is that he will play, and when he does, Chelsea's attack should look significantly better. The feeling around the club, based on everything being said, is that Fernandez has a point to prove. He owes his teammates and the fans after the distraction his comments caused, and what better way to prove yourself than in a massive game against Manchester United? The injury is making life difficult for Roseneur now. Before we go any further, let us be clear about the players who will not be available on Saturday, because understanding who is missing helps you understand the challenges Roseneur is working with. Reece James is out, the Chelsea captain is in the treatment room, losing your captain, your first choice right back, and one of the most experienced players in the squad is always going to hurt a team. James brings leadership, quality, and consistency. Without him, the right side of Chelsea's defense is less secure. Levi Colwill is also out. The young centre-back is dealing with a serious ACL injury. He was set to play in an under-21s match on Friday to work his way back to fitness, but he will not be involved on Saturday. ACL injuries are brutal. They take a long time to recover from, and it is important that Colwill takes the proper time to return fully fit. Jamie Gittins is absent with a fitness issue. The winger has been a bright spot for Chelsea in recent times, and his energy and directness from wide areas will be missed. Philip Jorgensen, the goalkeeper, is also unavailable. This means Robert Sanchez will continue in goal. Sanchez actually came through the City game with some credit, which was a welcome change, but the team will want more consistent performances from him going forward. And then there is Mikhailo Mudryk. The Ukrainian winger is still suspended while the football world waits for a final verdict on a possible doping ban. That situation has dragged on for a long time, and it is clearly something that has been difficult for everyone associated with Chelsea Football Club. Until there is clarity, Mudryk remains unavailable. There is, however, one possible positive in the injury department. Could Trevoh Chalobah return? Trevoh Chalobah has recently returned to training after dealing with an injury. Roseneur said he is very, very close to making his comeback. The question is whether he will be ready to face United on Saturday. If Chalobah is fit and selected, it would give Chelsea an experienced option in central defense. If not, Jorel Hato is expected to step in alongside Wesley Fofana. Hato, the young Dutchman, has had a tough first season in the Premier League by some accounts, but youth players go through difficult periods and what matters is how they respond. The predicted lineup and what it tells us. Based on everything that has been reported and said by Roseneur, here is how Chelsea are expected to line up against Manchester United in a 4-2-3-1 formation. Robert Sanchez in goal, Malo Gusto at right back, Wesley Fofana and either Trevoh Chalobah or Jarell Hato as the two center backs, Marc Cucurella at left back. In the double pivot in midfield, Caicedo alongside either Andre Santos or Romeo Lavia. There is real competition for that second midfield spot, and Roseneur has a big decision to make. In the attacking midfielder role behind the striker, Enzo Fernandez is expected to return. On the right wing, Cole Palmer. In the number 10 position, or just behind Fernandez, on the left wing, Pedro Neto. And up front as the striker, Joao Pedro. Now let us talk about some of the key players in this lineup and what they need to do. Cole Palmer needs to step up. Cole Palmer has been involved in just one goal across his past 11 matches for Chelsea. That is a staggering stat for a player of his quality. And against Manchester United, facing a team he grew up supporting, he needs to remember who he is. Palmer is one of the most talented young English players in the game. He has everything: the technique, the vision, the composure in front of goal. When he is at his best, he is almost unplayable. But right now, he is going through a difficult period, and the team needs him to come out of it. The question is simple. Can Palmer find his form when it matters most? Because this Saturday is as important as it gets for Chelsea's season. Pedro Neto and the search for a Premier League goal. Pedro Neto has not scored in the Premier League since the beginning of December. That is months without a goal in the top flight for a player who is supposed to be one of Chelsea's attacking threats. Neto is a skillful player. He has pace, trickery, and the ability to beat defenders. But goals and assists are what keep wingers in the conversation at elite clubs. He needs to contribute more directly, and he needs to do it soon. Against United's right side, which could include Amad Diallo or Brian Mbeumo, depending on the formation, Cucurella and Neto on the left side of Chelsea will have their hands full. Joao Pedro carrying the attack of all Chelsea's attackers. Joao Pedro has been the most consistent this season, but even he has felt the impact of the team's poor form. One goal in his last 6 matches tells you that when the team around a striker is not functioning, it becomes very hard for any individual to shine. Pedro needs supply. He needs the midfield to be getting the ball forward quickly. He needs the wingers to be stretching the pitch, and he needs Enzo Fernandez to be pulling strings behind him. If all of those things happen on Saturday, Pedro can be the difference. Manchester United and why Chelsea can win this. Yes, Chelsea are in bad form. Yes, the injury list is long. Yes, there is pressure on everyone at the club right now. But here is something important that cannot be ignored. Manchester United are not in great shape either. United lost to Leeds United on Monday night. That means they have won just one of their past 4 games. They are also in a difficult period. They are also fighting for Champions League qualification. And they are also coming into this game with their own set of problems. So this is not a case of Chelsea facing a United side that is flying and full of confidence. Both teams are struggling. Both teams need the points desperately. And that means the game could go either way. When games are this tight, this high stakes, and this much about mentality, the team that shows more desire, more fight, and more quality in the key moments usually wins. Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, with the crowd behind them, with Fernandes returning, and with a squad that knows what is at stake, have every reason to believe they can get 3 points on Saturday, but they have to want it badly enough. What does the future look like for Chelsea? Zooming out from Saturday for a moment, let us look at the bigger picture. Chelsea are a club that is building. The squad is young in many places. There are players still finding their feet at this level. The manager, Liam Roseneur, is still relatively early in his time with the club and is working to implement his ideas and his style of play. Bad runs happen to every team. Even the great teams go through periods where results do not go their way. What matters is how they come out of it. And with Caicedo now committed until 2033, with talented players like Palmer, Pedro, and Fernandes in the squad, and with young defenders like Colwill working their way back to fitness, there is real reason for optimism about what this Chelsea squad can become. Caicedo himself said it best. Together with everyone, we are going to bring more trophies to this club. This club deserves everything, which is why we are working hard. That is a player who believes in what this team can do. That is a player who sees the potential around him and is excited about it rather than worried about it. What about the FA Cup? Caicedo made a specific mention of the FA Cup when talking about this season's ambitions. He promised that he and his teammates would give everything to bring that trophy to Stamford Bridge. The FA Cup remains one of the most important trophies in English football. It is a competition that Chelsea have won before and that every big club in England takes seriously. If Chelsea can navigate their way through the remainder of the competition, an FA Cup final appearance would do wonders for the confidence of this squad going into next season. Will they do it? That remains to be seen, but the desire is clearly there. Final thoughts. A moment that defines where Chelsea are heading. So here is where we land after all of this. This week has been a week of contrasts for Chelsea Football Club. On one side, the wonderful news of Caicedo committing his future to the club until 2033, a player who loves the club, who has become a genuine leader, and who has already contributed trophies and memorable moments to the history of this great club. On the other side, a team going through a rough patch, carrying injuries, dealing with off-field distractions, and desperately needing a win on Saturday to keep Champions League qualification alive. Football has a way of making things simple when everything else feels complicated. Forget the noise. Forget the contracts and the suspensions and the injuries for a moment. This Saturday, Chelsea need 3 points, and every single player who puts on that shirt needs to give everything they have. The fans at Stamford Bridge will be there. They always are. Caicedo spoke about what it means to him when his name is called and the crowd responds. That connection between player and supporter is what football is really about. And in a tough moment for the club, that relationship between the team and the supporters has never been more important. Caicedo promised the fans he is going to give everything for this club. That is not just a quote. That is a commitment from a man who means it with his whole heart. And if the rest of the squad can match that commitment on Saturday against Manchester United, Chelsea will give themselves a real chance of getting back on track. So the question for you as a Chelsea fan is this: do you believe this team can turn it around? Do you think the return of Fernandes and the energy of a home crowd can be the difference against United? And where do you see Chelsea finishing this season? Whatever happens on Saturday, one thing is certain: Moises Caicedo will be giving absolutely everything. And for a Chelsea fan, knowing that your best player is fully committed, fully motivated, and fully in love with your club is one of the best feelings in football. Come on, Chelsea. Time to remind everyone what this club is about.